Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. As Poland approaches the anniversary of the May 3rd Constitution, a defining moment in nation's history, we take some time to reflect on the legacy of Europe's earliest and most progressive constitutional documents. Adopted in 1791, the Constitution of the May 3rd was a bold and visionary attempt to reform a decaying political system and safeguard the national sovereignty in the face of growing external threats. Today, the presidency plays a critical role in foreign policy and national security, but debates continue around whether presidential powers should perhaps be expanded, reduced, or more clearly defined, especially amid rising political polarization and shifting global dynamics. To help us navigate through these historical parallels and political questions, we are joined now by one of the most respected voices on Polish history and statehood, Adam Zamoyski, historian, author and commentator on European affairs. Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Could you please briefly describe the historical context leading to the adoption of May 3rd Constitution in 1791, and tell us, please, what was the stake for Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth at that time?
Well, it was of immense significance because the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was a state which functioned on consensus. It was very decentralized. It had few functioning institutions, and it relied on an immense amount of goodwill by everybody. Also, the electoral system of electing kings introduced an element of instability which was inherent in the state. So the new constitution, which essentially turned Poland into a constitutional hereditary monarchy, was right up with the thinking of the day. It was it would have turned Poland into the most liberal and democratic country in the world, actually. And its great achievement was that 50 years ago, if anybody had suggested, 50 years before, even 30 years before, if anybody had suggested such a text, they would have been murdered. And it was a huge achievement of a group of reformers, really a political party, but grouped around an extended family network, which through various means managed to convince the Polish people of the desirability of changing their ways. And the really remarkable thing about it, and this was taken up very much in Britain at the time, was that it was achieved without any violence, although it was passed by subterfuge. It was, in a sense, a gentle coup d'etat, but there was no bloodshed or anything. And bearing in mind what's happening in France, which was also reforming itself and passed its own constitution a few months later, which had cost violence, destruction, and huge bloodshed. The Polish model was set up. It was praised and hailed throughout the free world then, in America, in Britain, and in France. Many of the most progressive French, some of them pointed to the Polish constitution as an example they should follow.
Yes, although unlike France, Poland had to pay the ultimate price for it. No bloodshed, but on the other side, Polish vanished from the maps of of the contemporary world for many years. But how radical or progressive was the May 3rd Constitution in comparison to other political documents at that time of the era, such as the American Constitution or the French Declaration of the Rights of Man that you mentioned?
It was extremely progressive. It was more progressive than the American one because it didn't sanction slavery. Yes, the peasants in Poland, or a great number of them, were in a position of subjection, but it wasn't slavery. They couldn't be bought or sold. And anyway, that was already inherent in the Constitution, was that this was going to be looked into, and indeed every single inhabitant of Poland was placed under the protection of the crown. So it was, and the reason it couldn't last was because, of course, Poland's neighbors couldn't accept that. Prussia couldn't accept Poland becoming a well-organized state because Prussia wouldn't be able to take slices of territory off it. Austria was afraid that such freedom would set a bad example. But most of all, Russia, as Catherine, known as the Great, Catherine II, the Empress of Russia, said indignantly, she said, all the peasants from Western Russia will simply, all the serfs will run away to Poland because they'll become free men there. So it was its progressiveness that doomed it and the country.
So fast forward to contemporary Poland. Current constitution limits the presidential powers in key areas. Do you think the balance between presidency and parliament works well and is effective?
Well, the Constitution of 3rd of May placed, obviously, the king, the monarch, at the head of the political system and the sovereign, but he was only the executive of the government, the guardians, as they call themselves. Whereas at present, there is a situation which I find absurd, and it's the same in several other European examples, where the president has ultimate powers to prevent an elected government operating. And one thing that I have always found utterly absurd is that the power of grace, of amnesty, of pardon, the royal pardon, was brought in, the notion of it was brought in the Middle Ages because the king and head of state was considered to be, as it were, the representative of God on earth. And that was shown by, in his coronation, he was actually anointed with holy oils, as it were, as a kind of prelate almost. And anybody who watched the coronation of King Charles III of England would have seen that he was also anointed with holy oils. And so the idea was that although mankind in his greatest wisdom could condemn somebody of a crime, there was always the fact that mankind can get it wrong, and therefore there was an ultimate release that the king could cut through the laws made by man. But the irony is that not a single of the reigning monarchs today can pardon anybody, whereas every single president on earth can pardon all his buddies just because they're convicted, and they regularly do. This happens in Poland. Hundreds of people have been pardoned since 1989. In the United States, Trump was even thinking of pardoning himself, as it were, for the future. It's so the idea of presidential powers being increased is to my mind ridiculous, and if anything, I think they should be reduced or circumscribed.
Adam Zamoyski, thank you so much for joining us, for being here on TVP World. So let's hope that currently the policymakers can take the lessons from history, from the successes and failures of May 3rd Constitution.
Yes, I hope so.
Thank you so much. And thank you for watching TVP World here and World Talks. Please stay tuned to our channel for more features and more news.